Hey there, Legal Tea listeners. This is your host, Jenny Roselle. We are back to estate planning of the rich and famous, where we chat about celebrities and their estate planning. Today's episode is on Marilyn Monroe, a name most people sure will recognize. According to Marilyn Monroe's Wikipedia page, she is described as, quote, an American actress, model, and singer. She was famous for playing comedic blonde bombshell characters, and she became one of the most popular sex symbols of the 1950s and early 1960s, and was emblematic of the era's sexual revolution, end quote. So as always, let's talk a little bit about Marilyn personally before we dive into her estate plan and what happened estate-wise following her passing. So a little fun fact to kick things off. You know that Marilyn Monroe was not her real name, right? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I didn't. But her real name was Norma Jean Mortensen. Marilyn, as a child, and even through her teenage years, had quite the bumpy upbringing. Reading about what she went through about broke my little heart. A perfect example of it was her first marriage to a gentleman by the name of James Doherty. According to her Wikipedia page, after ending up going through foster care and multiple families and orphanages, she attended high school in California. The family she was residing with at that time, the husband of the family was getting relocated. So instead of possibly having to return to the orphanage where she was prior to this family, she married her next-door neighbor's 21-year-old son, James Doherty, when she was 16 years old. At that time, she dropped out of high school and became a homemaker. James had enlisted in the service, and she followed him to Santa Catalina Island, where he was stationed. While she began working in a factory, it was in 1944 when she began modeling. And she gained attention thereafter pretty darn quickly. According to Wikipedia, she'd appeared on 33 magazine covers by early 1946, just a mere 2 years later. It was in 1946, too, that Marilyn and James divorced. Shortly after her modeling gaining more and more attention, she also began dipping her toes in acting. Just like her modeling career, her acting career took off too. While there were some issues that we won't get into since we don't have time, there were some issues with 20th Century Fox, and she wanted to shift the negative light of those issues to positive light. And this is when she and Joe DiMaggio got married, though the marriage was short-lived and the two got divorced in 1955. Before the divorce was finalized, she had been dating a gentleman by the name of Arthur Miller, who was a well-known playwright. They ended up getting married in 1956. Marilyn and Arthur desired to have children. However, they had trouble and sadly experienced miscarriages. They never ended up having any children. Sadly, this wore on Marilyn, and she was hospitalized due to an overdose. Again, Marilyn and her spouse had issues that were often amplified due to Marilyn's drug addiction, and she and Arthur eventually got a divorce in 1961. In the fall the next year, so 1962, Marilyn's housekeeper was staying overnight, and in the middle of the night, they noticed that Marilyn's bedroom light was still on. After making a call to her psychiatrist and police, Marilyn was found dead in her bed on August 4th, 1962. She was only 36 years old at that time. According to the toxicology report, she passed away due to acute barbiturate poisoning. The deputy coroner, after taking in all the facts, stated it was a, quote, probable suicide. After her passing, a last will and testament was located. Yay! At least we're getting some good news, sort of. A last will and testament was located, and sadly, it's not going to say good news for long, so let me just have my happy moment for a second, okay? Okay, so according to an article on Live About, Marilyn's will, since she only had a will, was filed for probate in New York a handful of days after her passing. Nearly immediately after the will was filed to probate, one of Marilyn's business managers contested the will, but it was officially determined to be a valid will, and the will was admitted to probate in October 1962. And that's just a couple months after she passed away. So it sounds like it took a couple of months to shoo away the business manager, but beyond that, it was at that point that the will's provisions were made public. So Marilyn's will left her estate like this. First, Marilyn's half-sister Bernice was to receive $10,000. Marilyn's personal secretary May was to receive $10,000. Marilyn's friends Norma and Hedda were to receive $5,000 each. Marilyn's mother, Gladys, was to receive $100,000 to be held in trust, and specifically the trust was to distribute $5,000 per year to her mother. And Marilyn's personal belongings were to go to her friend and acting coach, Lee Strasberg. And all remaining assets were to be divided between her personal secretary, May, her mother's psychiatrist to, quote, be used by her for the furtherance of the work of such psychiatric institutions or groups as she shall elect, and her friend and acting coach, Lee Strasberg. And Lee was to get the heavy majority of the remaining assets, coming in, I believe, at like 75% was to go to him. So yeah, it wasn't an equal divide. Lee got most of it. And that sounds all fine and dandy, right? Well, I'm sure you Legal Tea listeners know better than that. This would be the quickest Legal Tea episode ever if we ended things there. According to a blog by Roulette Law Firm, a law firm in Minnesota and Florida, shortly after Marilyn passed away, Lee Strasberg passed away. But because he technically did survive Marilyn when she passed, his estate still got what he was set to get from Marilyn's estate, so that's 75%, and all the personal property. Here's the kicker. Lee's estate went to his third wife, Anna Strasberg, who Marilyn never even met. Anna, when she received what Lee got from Marilyn's estate, Anna proceeded to essentially capitalize on things. For example, according to Roulette Law Firm's blog, Anna licensed Marilyn's, quote, likeness and products to hundreds of companies, including Mercedes-Benz, Coca-Cola, and others, earning millions, end quote. The blog further shares that many of Marilyn's personal belongings were auctioned off, including the dress that she famously wore when she sang "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" to President Kennedy. That was won for $1 million, just that single dress. An auction brought in $1 million. Or, according to Trust Counsel, a blog that Trust Counsel wrote, Anna auctioned off Marilyn's baby grand piano, which she received from her mother. That was won by none other than Mariah Carey for $600,000. All of this is said to have earned lots and lots of millions of dollars for Anna. You know, Anna, the lady that Marilyn never met. Though, Marilyn can only blame herself. Her plan did not account for this happening, but it sure could have, and more on that in just a second. As you probably are piecing together, Marilyn's estate had a lot of moving parts. When I actually started researching for this episode, I kept seeing it referred to as the 40-year probate estate. Well, I found out that's exactly what happened. Marilyn's estate was open from 1962, the year that Marilyn passed away, until 2001. 2001 is when the New York Probate Court determined that the estate was officially done and settled. Before we dive into what Marilyn could have done to avoid what happened, specifically with Anna, one last quick thing to chat about. Taxes. So, like we've seen happen to so many other celebrities that we've talked about on Legal Tea, a dispute arose between Marilyn's estate and the IRS. According to accountingweb.com, the estate claimed that Marilyn's estate's domicile, which is the place or the state where the person resided, was New York. However, in the middle of the estate proceeding, New York passed some tax laws that caused her estate representatives to say, you know what, let's make California our domicile so we can pay less tax. Well, that's fine, except from the beginning they claimed New York was the domicile. And you can't just up and switch it like that. Otherwise, everyone would do that, right? So the dispute between the estate and the IRS ended up going through the court, and the district court judge, whose name is Kim McLean Wardlaw, ultimately sided with the IRS. And she said, in much more legalese, basically she said, nope, your domicile is New York, not California. Hilariously, in some of her final remarks, Judge Wardlaw said, with a figurative nod to Marilyn's often quoted saying, she said, if you're going to be two-faced, at least make one of them pretty. What a mic drop moment. I love it. I'm sure Judge Wardlaw was thinking, come the heck on. You can't just flip and flop between states to your benefit tax-wise. It doesn't work like that. So funny. All right, what can we learn from Marilyn's estate? Among a few other things, there is a way to control inheritances for beneficiaries. Believe it or not, it is possible. It often is accomplished by utilizing a trust. And specifically what I mean by that is the beneficiary themselves inherit a trust. And I know this is kind of legal technically, there we go. But what happens is your estate plan provides the beneficiary's inheritance via a trust, and you write the terms for their trust. The kicker is the beneficiaries can't really add their own assets to this trust. It is mainly to control what happens to their inheritance from you. So had Marilyn did something like this would have allowed her to dictate, okay, well, if Lee passes away, this is what happens. This is what happens to what he would have gotten from my estate. If you want to do something like this, an experienced estate planner can help. Any old attorney may not be able to do this, and I mean zero disrespect to my general practitioner attorney friends, but there's estate planning. But when you want to do something like this, it's kind of like estate planning 2.0. I was having a conversation with a client just last week about how an attorney can, any attorney can throw documents together for you. Will they be good documents? Maybe, maybe not. But will every attorney take the time to discuss how assets play together with the documents? Will every attorney help you come up with creative options like this to control inheritances for your beneficiaries? Will every attorney counsel you while preparing those estate planning documents? The answer is no, not every attorney will. Alrighty, let's wrap this episode up, friends. Next week, we are back to a cautionary tale episode where we talk about real-life clients, real-life cases, not celebrity-level cases like this. And those cases are ones that I or my office have personally worked on. Next week, we're going to be talking about a case where, unfortunately, after their mother passed away, the kids started fighting not about who gets what, but fighting about who is in control, called the executor or the personal representative. And they are all not budging, and their legal fees keep accumulating, and they don't care. So yeah, tune in for that next Tuesday, Legal Tea listeners. Until then, take care and be well.